University of St. Thomas, a master's degree in curriculum theory and instruction from Temple University, and spent 20 years studying traditional and Islamic sciences, Quran, and Arabic in Damascus, Syria. Dr. Gray worked in the field of education for 25 years before moving into the nonprofit world. She is now both the executive director of Rabata and its chief spirituality officer. Her work includes the daily nitty gritty of project design as well as the support and mentorship of hundreds of women around the world. Dr. Tamara is also an author, translator, and public speaker. Her publications range from several culturally appropriate English language curriculum programs to translations of sacred text. Her most recent book, Project Lena, Bringing Our Whole Selves to Islam, is a manual for converts at every stage of the path. She is a co-translator of Muqtasir al-Jamia fi al-Sira al-Nabawiya by Sheikha Samira Zayed, which is called The Compendium of the Collection of Sources on al-Sira al-Nabawiya, and her book Joy Jots, Exercises for a Happy Heart, in its second print. Dr. Gray is often engaged to speak about issues of gender, leadership, Islam, and spirituality, locally, nationally, and globally. Some of her platforms have included the International Leadership Association, the World Parliament of Religions, the Islamic Society of North America, and several universities, including Princeton, Virginia Tech, and Oxford University. Dr. Gray is a member of the Fiqh Council of North America, Academic Council of the Islamic Seminary of America, and a board member of the Collegeville Institute's Interreligious Fellows Program, which works to develop educational programming for faith leaders around social justice issues. Sheikha Tamra lives in Minnesota, where she enjoys coffee, the seasons, and her grandchildren. She is the founder of the Rabata Academic Institute and has been teaching a variety of Islamic sciences courses since its inception in 2013. Now, without further delay, Nancy, Bismillah. Oh, you're muted. Let's see. Admin, could you please unmute?
There we go. All right. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and welcome. I'm so excited to be here. I'm really excited about the program. I want to thank all of our volunteers at Circles of Light who had this brilliant idea. It's such a wonderful time to think about Maryam, the mother of Jesus. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with her. And it's really beautiful to be with all of you here tonight from wherever you're coming from, to be here to celebrate this amazing woman. Now, tonight is not the beginning and end of this discussion because we will be going today all the way up until the 25th, until Christmas. So tonight I am tasked with the very beginning of this story and thinking just about that very beginning. So I'm excited about that. I'll start by saying Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Salatu Salam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali ashabi ajma'in, in the name of God, the most gracious and most merciful. Mary, or Maryam, is a really important figure in Abrahamic religion. She, for Christians, is a critical pinnacle figure, and for Muslims is one of the best women ever, and also a critical and pinnacle figure. She was a Jewish woman who spent time at the temple. So she brings together Judaism, Christianity and Islam in a very incredibly elevated way. She is a place where we all come together and agree, or we come together and we recognize an incredible woman. And that by itself is something really exciting, because for the past couple centuries at least, religion has been brought forth as though it's not really something about women, as though really it's something more about men. And for women, they can kind of take the side road maybe, or the side seat. But Maryam stands very tall to remind us all, no matter where we come from, no matter who we are, that if you are a woman, your role is critical. And your ability to rise, to be of the best of humanity, is not affected by your gender. Rather, it could be enhanced by it. Now, Maryam, the story of Maryam begins not with Maryam herself, but with her parents, and even before that. There's a lot to say and to think about when we are thinking about where she came from. Her mother's name is said to be Hannah. For in Christian tradition, she's called Saint Anne. Now, Anne is the Greek version of the Hebrew Hannah. So it's the same name. We're all talking about the same person. Her father was Imran, and these two are descended from Jacob. So we're talking about a real connection to early prophethood, a real connection to the line of Abrahamic prophets, and a critical part of what will become the important history of the oneness of God, the important history of the worship of God on the face of the earth. Now, it is said that Hannah, or Anne, was barren. Christian sources also tell us that Hannah was the sister of the wife of Prophet Zechariah, who was also barren. Now, by barren, of course, what I mean is that she was, in our modern terminology, she hadn't been able to have a child. Now, that's something that even today, with all of the science at our fingertips, with everything that we can access, can be a real trial and a struggle for a woman who really craves and wishes for a child. And Hannah, and my talk today is about Hannah and the birth of Mary. Today, my part of the story is to talk about the birth of Mary. Hannah, who wanted a child, it is said that there are many stories about when she made this very special prayer. Some say that it was when she was looking at a mother bird feeding a baby bird. God knows when her prayer actually came from her lips. But certainly the prayer that came from her lips came from deep within. Another narration or story says actually that her husband, Imran, had a vision that his wife was going to give birth to a baby boy who would cure the leper, cure the blind, and raise the dead by God's leave. And that he shared that information with his wife. So we have a couple of different stories about where that prayer came from. But what's important to me here is the prayer itself. The prayer itself that she makes, the intention, the promise that she makes, which is to dedicate her child to the temple. What does that mean? This is really an important part of this story. Now, it could be that the story that we're told that Imran, her husband, had a vision that the child was going to be this incredible, basically Jesus, who will come later. And so with her mind on this, she decided to dedicate this child to the temple. It could be that she believed it would be a boy. Therefore, she dedicated it to the temple because of that vision. It could be instead that, as some scholars have said, that Hannah, after so long of really wanting this one thing, think about that thing that's in your mind, your heart. What's that thing that you keep asking Allah for? this thing that she really wanted, that when she felt that feeling, she said, oh God, I will dedicate. I'm pregnant. You gave me what I want. You gave me the blessing that I've been praying and hoping for. Then I dedicate this child to the temple, meaning I dedicate this child to the worship of you. Now, that's a really big deal, and it shows a line of piety in the life of Miriam. In fact, it shows a line of piety in the family of Jacob, which we don't always hear about in the feminine line, in the female line. Now, this piety, I want you just to, let's get it practical for a minute and think really about what it means. Hannah's life will become more complicated because her husband will die before the baby is born. In older times, thinking about children and having children usually meant a lot. One of the things, however, it really meant was a future of someone caring for you, especially if it was a boy. Especially if it was a boy. If you had a boy, if you were from agricultural cultures, that would be about what? It would be about that boy helping to till the fields, harvest the food, etc. More industrial cultures meant the boy could go out and work and bring money in. Boys were seen as a relief to the financial future of parents. Girls were also seen certainly as help, certainly as one that would help to support the home, but not in the same way. So here we have a woman who makes a conscious decision that the very gift she asked God for, she will turn around and rededicate it to God. That's mind-blowing. Because for her it meant that the child would be raised in the temple and not by her. That the sort of fun of raising a child, that the personal material benefit of having a child was no longer for her. Her gratefulness to God for the blessing that she received was the promise of the temple. And she expected it, this pregnancy of hers, to be a boy. Of course, because there wasn't any, certainly a girl could not be dedicated to the temple. Women at the time didn't enter the temple. So certainly it would be a boy that entered the temple. Now, she gives birth. Hannah. And when she gives birth, the Quran quotes her in this very beautiful way. We have a woman who is truly committed to her Lord, truly committed to her Lord, who now has given birth, and she's ready, she's ready. She's gone through everything. She's ready to commit this child to the temple, this boy child that she expects to the temple. فَلَمَّا وَضَعَتْهَا قَالَتْ رَبِّي إِنِّي وَضَعَتُهَا أُنْثَى. Ya Allah, wait a minute. Wait 1 minute here. It's a girl. How will I fulfill my vow if it's a girl? This is a lesson for humanity. A lesson for humanity. إِنِّي وَضَعَتُهَا أُنْثَى وَاللَّهُ أَعْلَمُ بِمَا وَضَعَتْ. And indeed, God knew best of what she had brought forth. Of course, God knows. God knows very well the child that she will give birth to. The unique, very special child of Mary, who is Mary. The Quran goes on to say, وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنْثَى, which in translation standing alone without the context of the sentence can sometimes be and has been misinterpreted. In English, and indeed the male is not the same as the female. So the sentence together is فَلَمَّا وَضَعَتْهَا قالت ربي إني وضعتها أنثى والله أعلم بما وضعت وليس الذكر كالأنثى وإني سميتها مريم. That goes on. In English, when she was delivered, she said, "O my Lord, behold, I am delivered of a female child." And Allah, God, knew best what she brought forth. And no wise is the male like the female. I have named her Mary, and it continues. I'll talk about the rest in a second. Now, the miracle here, the beauty here, the lesson here, many lessons here. One of the lessons here is for us as women to really know that there is no craving or need. We're not in need of becoming a man in order to fulfill our destiny, in order to be the best on the earth. That being a woman is this baby girl, as a girl, will fulfill God's plan. She herself will fulfill God's plan. وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنثَى. In this case, a male cannot do what a female can do. And certainly, this is true for every individual, whether male or female, that what I can do is unique to me, and what you can do is unique to you. And in the end, that is where we have to stand, in that very strong place of the promises that we make, and the secret promises of our heart, and that relationship to God. Mary and her mother are examples of a philosophical paradigm that we've forgotten, I think. The Western world is really based in a philosophical paradigm that is very different than the Muslim paradigm. And this is, I don't want to go into deep philosophy, but for example, how does a human being know she's human? How do I know I'm human? How do you know you're human? How do we know? What is our consciousness of ourself? In much of Western philosophy, especially Hegel's way of thinking, being human means that I am reflected. It's more complicated than this, but that my consciousness of self is reflected in how I see you and whether or not you see me. And this is really deeply in culture, as we say things like "I feel seen," many ideas around labor and the importance of labor and all this kind of stuff comes from there. It's much more complicated than the simplistic view. But the important piece that I want to point out is that Imam al-Ghazali, when he talks about consciousness, how do I know who I am? He says the human being knows who the human being is. We know we are a human being because of our consciousness of God. That is indeed what makes us human. And this story is so beautiful because Hannah, the mother of Miriam, her great desire for something of this world, when she receives it, her response is so rooted in this concept of my humanness is deeply embedded in my knowledge that there is God, that God exists, and I am God's creation. And the gifts of God are gifts from God, and so deserve great, deep thanks from me. And so her response, which was to dedicate this gift to the temple, now it's complicated because she's made this decision, but the rules are no boys allowed. What's she going to do? What's she going to do? She has a baby. إِنِّي سَمَّيْتُهَا مَرْيَمَ وَإِنِّي أُعِيذُهَا بِكَ وَذُرِّيَّتَهَا مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. First thing she does, she names her child Miriam, and she prays again. She seeks protection from Shaitan. She seeks protection for the child, Mary, and her offspring from all that is evil. Full protection. from all that is evil. Now, the question is, what's she going to do? What is she going to do? Is she going to send the child to the temple? How is she going to manage that? How is she going to dedicate this child? How is she going to fulfill her promise? She doesn't say, oh, it's not the way I thought. That's enough. That's okay. Oh, it's not. She does say, wait a minute. It's not. It's a girl, not a boy. But she fulfills the promise. She fulfills the promise. And the next verse, which is a very powerful verse about this, is فَتَقَبَّلَهَا رَبُّهَا بِقَبُولٍ حَسَنٍ. And God, her Lord, accepted her with full acceptance. Hannah, the mother of Mary, had made a promise, and she found a way to fulfill the promise. The fulfillment will come in the guardianship of Zechariah, and she will go to the temple, and she will grow in the temple. But the promise, she broke all norms to fulfill that promise to God. So, excuse me, in the lessons from this piece of the life of Mary, there are many lessons for us in this modern age of materialism, this modern age of secularism, this modern age where everyone is made fun of. It is no longer politically correct, and we're very happy about this, to mock anyone except for those who are faithful. That one is okay. It's okay to mock the super religious Christian. It's okay to mock the super religious Jew. It's okay to mock the super religious Muslim. That's not okay. In this time of secularism, when to be a person of faith takes great bravery and courage. Takes great bravery and courage in the social setting, but not on the inside. As we see the mother of Mary, she gives us the perfect example. When you know that what makes you human is your connection to God and not your connection to humans. And the other people make you maybe a social creature, but that's not what makes you human. What makes us human is that God exists. God created us. When we recognize that, that's when we fulfill what makes us human. And when we have that deep feeling of, yeah, I know, that means that we know why we're here. It's not bravery that we need there. It's just a removing of the veils in our hearts. It's a removing of the denial of the signs that God gives us, because God gives us signs all the time. As in the story of the mother of Mary, was it that she saw a bird? How many times have you seen a commercial and started to cry? Or seen some television show or news or something where you started to cry and think about something in your life, or maybe it came as an answer to a prayer that you made, or who knows, like the ways that signs come to us. It doesn't take bravery to go deep and find God. It just takes a small step, like the mother of Mary. It takes bravery, however, to live in the world as a person of faith. And Mary's mother, Hannah, had that bravery. When she found herself with a baby girl, she still trusted that this child was going to fulfill the promise, going to fulfill, was there a vision, going to fulfill the whatever was she had promised, the mother of Mary. But imagine the bravery it took for her to say, no, I'm fulfilling my vow, even though it's a girl. And I want to, again, circle back and just remind us all, not only of the bravery in front of other people, but the tawakkul, or the trust, when thinking about the future. She realized, now her husband died, and her one child, she's dedicating it to the temple. She doesn't say, will I be lonely? She doesn't say, will I be lonely? She says, I want to fulfill my vow. I know that many of us feel lonely in this world. So you can be around many people and feel lonely. In the last year of the COVID experience, so many people have felt lonely because they couldn't be with the people that they loved. I suggest to us all to look at Hannah and to look at her carefully and remind ourselves that true internal comfort comes from fulfilling our promises to God, comes from deep prayer and great focus on God. Mary, her daughter, will grow up to carry many different names. And these names, I feel that, so she says she named her Miriam. The baby was born, and she named her Miriam. The child was named Miriam. But as she grows, she'll also be called the worshiper, Qanita. She'll be called Siddiqa, the truthful. She'll be called Sajida, the one who prostrates before her Lord. She'll be called Tahira, the pure one. Mustafiya, the chosen one. Saima, the fasting one. All these beautiful names of this child that is first named Maryam and dedicated to the temple. Dedicated to what? To the work of fulfilling God's plan on this earth. Now, I want all of us to know. Well, Naima, I'm answering Naima's question in the chat box. She says, "What made her allowed in the temple if women weren't allowed?" We don't really know exactly what happened exactly, but most likely it was her uncle Zachariah, who was also a prophet, who had pull in the temple, and he was chosen as her guardian, and so he made an exception for her. This is most likely what happened, but exactly what happened in those moments, we're not sure. She was in a mihrab. She was alone. Yes, she was not in, when I say she was in the temple, she was on her own. Yes, on her own behind a screen. We'll talk more about her actual life as the days go on here. You're correct though, Rachel, yes. But I want to just focus on those moments of birth. I want to think about our own lives. What are we giving birth to right now? It's been a pregnancy since COVID, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Baby's overdue. What are you giving birth to right now? Right now. What are you giving birth to? What are the blessings that God has given you in these 10 months, of which certainly there has been much hardship for many? What are you giving birth to? Are you giving birth to some new skills? Are you giving birth to some maturity? Are you giving birth to patience? Are you giving birth to extra worship? Are you giving birth to a newfound awareness of God? Are you giving birth to energy? Are you giving birth to hope? What are you giving birth to? And I'd like us all, including myself, to really reflect on what is that blessing that Allah is giving us and see how we can make sure that whatever that blessing is, that we're dedicating it to God. Even if it's not easy. Even if it's not easy. Now, and I want to remind us that the mother of Maryam and Maryam herself as a baby, Maryam as a baby, but the mother of Maryam, because I want to stay focused on that time period. So I'm pulling back what I was going to say. The mother of Maryam is a woman who understood who she was, and that's what gave her that power. And we need to know who we are. In these days where, subhanAllah, the whole world is shopping, and I don't know, shopping online maybe mostly, and really thinking about a lot, sort of secular stuff, actually. But there is a reminder of the Christian story. I would like us as women to remember the role of two very important women in this story. One of them we're talking about all week, but the other one we're only talking about today, and that's Hannah. Her role as the woman who prayed for the child who will become the mother of Jesus. Her role as the woman who, when she prayed for that child, she became pregnant. She gave birth to this child and dedicated it to the temple and never wavered in that. We want to be women such as these. We want to be strong. We don't want to waver. We want to find ourselves in our relationship to God. That is the only place we will find true solace, true removal of loneliness, a true place of calm. The mother of Miriam reminds you of the mother of Musa. Yeah, because these are stories that we are told to remind us that whatever we have that is valuable to us, what is that thing that is the most valuable thing to you? Can we dedicate it to God? Can we dedicate our intelligence to God? Use it to memorize Quran? Can we dedicate our health to God? Use it to work for God? Use it to learn Islam? Can we dedicate our emotion? Can we just recognize that we live in a paradigm, that we do live in a paradigm? And the paradigm we live in is not the paradigm of, I know I am human because I know God. And that, if we can just switch our paradigm, it's going to calm so much of that trouble. Because when we're not judging ourselves based on the people around us, but rather based on our relationship to God, all of a sudden we get strong. Our shoulders square off a little bit. And we're able to do incredible things like Hannah. We're able to do incredible things like make promises to God and fulfill them. Now, just a caveat before I'm finished. When I say make promises to God, I want to say that I don't suggest that we make promises every day that we might not be able to fulfill. A promise to God is a serious thing. And there are many who, when out in the ocean, the proverbial ocean, the metaphorical ocean of life, and are drowning, there are many times in our lives when we are drowning. I mean that metaphorically. And when we say, oh God, get me out of this and I will, we just fill in that sentence. I once had a Christian woman I worked with in Syria, and her son was very sick, and so she made a promise to God. She was Christian, but she made a promise to God to fast Ramadan if he was cured. And he was cured, and she did it. And when we make promises to God, we need to fulfill them. So be very careful not to make promises that you won't fulfill. Always remember Hannah or Anne. Always remember her and think, if I'm making this promise that I'm going to, pardon the expression, but come hell or high water, I'm going to make it. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to find a creative way to fulfill that promise. And so for that, I would say, don't overpromise. We can promise to do our best, and to make sure that if you do promise, that you fulfill. Because this is about God. As I reach the end of my time tonight, I want to say that we have all been taught in the paradigm we live in to take care of ourselves. All of us. And some of us do it better than others. And sometimes women are well known to not do a good job, so we teach each other to take care of ourselves, get some sleep, maybe help one another to make sure that our friends are eating and sleeping and resting and praying and doing the things that they need to do. But in this piece of being taught to take care of ourselves, I want us to take a moment, just a quiet moment, and meditate on Hannah. And I want us to learn from her self-care. I'm closing my eyes. I'm going to think about her. I want you to imagine her. There's a new book out called Muslim Theology. It has to do with our ability to imagine. And I really apologize to the author because I know him, and maybe somebody can put it in the chat box because his name slips my mind right now. Inshallah, somebody will think of it, or I will. But so I want you to imagine. I want you to use the gift of imagination. And imagine that you're back in this time. You're a descendant of Jacob, a descendant of Moses, a descendant of Aaron. And you really want, maybe the reason you want that pregnancy is to continue the line. Maybe that it's what's the most important thing to you. What I want us to see in that moment of understanding, self-knowledge, of knowing who she is, and knowing what she could do. God gave her a pregnancy. Thank you, Zainab. That's exactly what it is. Modern Muslim Theology, Engaging God in the World with Faith and Imagination by Martin Nguyen. And I apologize if I mispronounced your last name, but it is a fantastic book. Thank you, yes. And Aunt Hannah, knows herself, knows that maybe she herself knows it, feels strongly that her role is to continue the line, maybe. And so when she's not pregnant, she's surprised. And then when her husband has a vision, she's excited. And then when the baby is born and it's a girl, she's confused. But all during that, she's certain of her role on the face of this earth as someone who God created and is set here for a purpose. Every single one of you watching today is Hannah. God has created you for a purpose. You are in your humanity because God gave you that humanity. You are not who you are because others see you one way or another. However we perform our life is irrelevant. Our authentic, deep selves are here because God has created us to be here. So I suggest to all of us that, like Hannah, we square our shoulders. What did she do first? She prayed. Oh God, excuse me. Oh God, give me the thing that I feel deeply I need. Make that prayer. Trust that God will give you that. Now, maybe we feel we need it, but God gives us something else. Look for the gift that God gives you in response to your prayer. When that gift is in your hands, look at that gift. Imagine it. Maybe you were asking for something that wasn't tangible, but just imagine for a moment that gift is in your hand. And think and say and do, I dedicate this back to you, dear God. I dedicate this back to you. And then start on the plan to figure out how that's going to happen. How that's going to happen. Prayer, intention, plan. That's Hannah in a nutshell. Prayer, intention, plan. Or prayer, dedication, intention, plan, and following through on the plan, success. As Miriam says in the chat box, most of the time, a lot of women see ourselves as facilitators of other people's lives, not necessarily about our own being or goals, etc. And one of the beautiful things in this is that it becomes our life as we may be, our whole life may be helping people around us. But all of a sudden, it's not about those people first, it's about God first. When it's about God first, then everything else falls into a very gentle, beautiful space. Prayer, what is that thing that your heart desires? When you see it with you, and pay attention to that too. Sometimes we make dua, we pray for something, and we get it, and we don't even remember that we prayed for it. We're just like going along in our lives blindly, not even noticing all the blessings that we're getting. No, notice. Notice. Thirdly, dedication. Let's dedicate. Dedicate that blessing now to God and plan how we're going to do it. How are we going to do it? How are we going to make it happen? With Allah's help, with God's help. I'm not saying how we're going to make it happen. Oh, we're so powerful. No. Oh my God, I love that. PIP. PIP. Prayer, intention, plan. I love it. It should be hashtag PIP. I love that so much. Prayer, intention, plan. Exactly. So that we can follow in the footsteps of Hannah. Follow in the footsteps of the mother of Maryam. Follow in the footsteps of this line of important Abrahamic carriers of the message of the oneness of God and how we live that in our lives. Thank you, everyone, very much. It's hard to keep myself just to a piece of her story. I'm used to jumping forward. So that was fun, actually. It was fun to just really hone in on one piece. I look forward to the rest of the week and listening to our other speakers talk about the other parts of her life that are, of Miriam's life, that are so exciting, subhanAllah. But may we all have PIP, prayer, intention, and planning. PIP. I love it. I love it so much. Allahumma salli wa sallam wa barak ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Thank you very much. Alhamdulillah.